As you're joining, just let people know where you're joining from. Which part of the world are you? So I'm in beautiful British Columbia here in Canada. My name is Adubia Foley, and I moved to Canada 5 years ago as an international student to study at UBC. And as you're joining, just let us know where you're joining from. We've got East Coast USA. We have another person from beautiful BC. Hello. Rockville, Maryland. Nice to see you, USA. Okay, so let me start with the questions that I got. Some of you submitted questions before, and then I'll open it up to the rest of you to ask any questions that you have. So I have one question that came in this morning from Manuel in Ghana. And his question was, how do I determine when I'm dealing with a fraudulent agency? So there's a number of agencies and a number of ads going out online, Instagram, everywhere, talking about, hi, we can help you come to Canada. And there's so many people who are advertising. Hello, and someone just joined. Just let us know where you're joining from. So I'm just digging into some of the FAQ questions that I got from from online, from the internet, and I'm starting with Manuel from Ghana's question, which is, how do I determine when an agency contacts me, how do I know if it's fraudulent? Hi, Vancouver. I'm in Vancouver as well. So to answer that question, what I would say is starting with Google. Google is your friend. You want to Google these companies, and you want to Google these names. If they have websites, you want to check out those websites. And also if they're offering you an immigration visa, then they have to be licensed immigration consultants. And so you can check with Canada.com on whether they're licensed, and you can actually ask them to email you their license. And you can also check Reddit channels and a number of different channels, because there you always find breadcrumbs of some of these fraudulent agencies that are out there, because there's a lot of people who are preying on immigrants and people who are interested in moving to Canada, because obviously Canada is a great place to move into. It's very immigrant friendly, and there's people all over the world who would like to move to Canada. So you have to make sure you ask people to show you their license if they're asking you for a fee. And there's a lot of free resources on the Canada website, and so people offer you things that you can actually look up yourself and get for free. So check your Google reviews, your Yelp reviews, your Reddit channels, your Canada websites to verify any of these agencies, and see what you can do for free, because there are a lot of free resources out there. One of the ones that I used was CanadaVisa.com, and there are so many others that I have in one of my posts on my blog, and you can check that out to see what are some of the resources that immigrants and aspiring immigrants can look at if they want to move to Canada. Hi, if you're joining, just let us know where you're joining from. And I'm going through some questions for FAQ Mondays that I get from aspiring immigrants who want to move to Canada and new immigrants who've just moved to Canada in the last 3 years. I set up this live chat so that we can chat face to face and answer some of your questions about moving to Canada and about finding a job in Canada, and also starting a business as a new immigrant in Canada. So I have one more question that was submitted earlier this morning, and then I open it up to you all to submit your questions. You can send a question in the comment, or you can also click on the question icon right by the comment, and then you can submit your question. So the second question that I got was from Frida in Ethiopia, and the question was, how can I apply for a job in Canada from outside of Canada? And this is a tricky one, because it really depends on the role in the industry that you're in. in a lot of the online applications for Canadian companies, they do have a disclaimer question that asks you if you're eligible to work in Canada. So it can be quite difficult if you're not eligible to work in Canada, you don't have a permanent residency or a work permit to apply for a job. It's not impossible, but it's still possible. So one of the things that I advise people to do is to start to reach out to recruiters. There are a number of recruiting companies that you can search online in Canada that do recruit outside of Canada, and you can reach out to them. You can start there. You can also start to build networks on LinkedIn. You can start to follow the companies in Canada that you're interested in applying for. Follow their pages on LinkedIn as they post. Some of them post their jobs, they post their openings. You can comment, you can reach out to the hiring managers and say, are you open to receiving applications from outside Canada? But just applying blindly online when you see a post, and especially when there's a question when you're submitting your job application asking if you're eligible to work in Canada, if your answer is no, it's quite likely that you don't move on in that round. But it's not possible, because I have met especially the larger tech companies. I have met a number of people who were recruited by them, because it is difficult, it is a complicated and a very expensive process for a company to recruit someone from outside Canada and to do the immigration process for them. So companies tend to shy away from it, but there's ways for you to start to get in touch with them and to find out and to research the ones that actually do, because there are a few companies out there that are actively recruiting international people from different parts of the world. And so you can start with the recruiting companies. They're recruiting agencies that actively recruit international, and then they're also following the companies on LinkedIn, commenting on their job postings, asking if they're open to getting applications from outside of Canada. Okay, so those were the two questions that were submitted this morning. Hi, Saffron, thanks for joining. If you're joining, just let us know where you're joining from so we can give you a shout out. We've got beautiful BC. I'm in British Columbia myself. I'm in Vancouver. We have another person from Vancouver joining. We've got people from the East Coast, USA. We've got Rockville, Maryland. Just let us know where you're joining from. So I'm just gonna look at the question that just came through. So the question that came through is, what are the requirements for an immigrant when starting a business in Canada? So there are a number of different pathways for immigrants who wants to start a business in Canada. There's if you're outside of Canada, there's a startup visa pathway, and there's a different immigrant pathway if you're outside of Canada. If you're new in Canada, if you are on a work permit or a student permit, there are some requirements that if you want to register for a business or start a business, you would have to register with someone who has permanent residency. But if you're an immigrant and you have permanent residency, you're free to register a business, and there are no restrictions for you if you have permanent residency. And there's no other restrictions if you're not a full Canadian citizen. But if you're on a temporary visa, there are some business registration that will require you to have a permanent resident also registering the company with you. And it's very possible, if you know someone who's a permanent resident, or you can also talk to them at the small business. There's Small Business BC for BC, and there are a number of these small business organizations that have free resources for immigrants who want to start a business. And it's a great. Saffron is asking about how we can find recruiting agencies. So recruiting agencies, you can find them on Google. You can also look at some of the Glassdoor and look on them on LinkedIn. They tend to do a lot of LinkedIn ads, and they tend to some of them will message you on LinkedIn depending on if you have like the open for work icon on your LinkedIn. But looking at LinkedIn and also Googling recruiting companies in Canada, and there's going to be a long laundry list of recruiting companies that show up, and so you want to do your due diligence by looking at their Google reviews and by looking at their testimonials, because you can just Google recruiting companies in Canada, and there are a number of them that that advertise on LinkedIn as well. So you want to do a bit of research to see what they recruit for. There's some recruiting companies that are just for tech roles. There are recruiting companies that are for medical, for different industry. You can find the recruiting company that best suits you. Great. Let me see if we have any other questions that are coming through. Hi from Sri Lanka. Good to see you. What time is it in Sri Lanka, I wonder? Let me see if I have another question. Okay, this is one of the most popular questions that I get from a lot of new immigrants, and is why do so many hiring managers in Canada ask for a Canadian work experience? And this can seem like a catch 22 because you've just arrived in the country and you're applying for a job, and one of the reasons that you can typically hear back from a recruiter is that it's very difficult to find your job, or it's very difficult because you don't have enough Canadian experience. And as you've just arrived in the country, how do you get that Canadian experience? And what I've found in my experience and in talking to other new immigrants is that the Canadian work experience sometimes can represent a number of things. And though a hiring manager might not necessarily require you to have worked officially in Canada, when they talk about Canadian experience, they're talking about three things. They're looking for local references. So if you've just arrived in Canada, you can go to some of these settlement services. There's a number of these different organizations that are out there that are set up for new immigrants, and they will take you through sort of a workshop, a career workshop, take you through the policies and the laws, or the employment laws, and they can write a reference letter for you. You can also volunteer. Volunteering is something that I encourage a lot of people to do. When you move to Canada, you can find either non-profits, organizations, or community centers, your library, just people that are looking for, yes, it's free labor, but this person can then become a reference for you. And that is one of the main things that HR managers and hiring managers are looking for when they say Canadian experience, because even though you might have very good work experience from your home country, there's a lot of things that is foreign to them or not easily recognizable to them, and there's a concern about thanks for that. There's a concern about you not understanding, or you not being able to adjust to the culture, you being more expensive, you being more of a risk because they have to train you. So it's up to you to demonstrate these reference points by showing you have volunteer experience. You can put that on your resume or on your LinkedIn, and then join professional organizations. That gives a lot of credibility. There's women in tech organization. There's CPA, chartered accountant organizations. There's a communications organizations. There's a banking organizations. Attending some of these events, which in COVID times have now all gone virtual. But yeah, you want to join some professional organizations, and you also want to sort of go into courses. That's another way to get Canadian experience, is taking a course. I came as an international student, so I get my Canadian experience from going to school. But my partner didn't come as a student, so he gained his Canadian experience by volunteering in different organizations, and he was volunteering to teach students online computer science. I know someone who was volunteering as an English tutor, and these are the things that get your foot in the door. They give you that Canadian credibility, they give you that experience, and so there's a number of ways that newcomers can quickly gain Canadian experience. Let's check to see if we have more questions coming through. Yeah, so this question is how new immigrants can engage with their new communities. And this goes back to the Canadian experience is in volunteering. There's going to your library. Volunteering is very key. It's something that you can find yourself doing very interesting work when you put your hand up to volunteer for an organization. I gained significant amount of experience from volunteering and getting on the boards of a nonprofit organization that was just starting as a treasurer. There's different things that you can do. You find yourself getting leadership positions, and you're able to give powerful leadership examples when you volunteer, because small organizations tend to have a bigger need for you to take on larger roles. And so volunteering is extremely key. And then there's a lot of community centers and sort of meetup groups. That's another one that I definitely encourage people to do. If there's interest that you have, there's a hiking meetup group. There's a Black women in BC meetup group. There's a coders group. I joined a Power BI meetup group as I'm a data analyst, and so I wanted to meet a number of people. And there's people there from Microsoft, SAP, a number of different, and then they do projects. Another way that if you have the time, is setting up these freelancer account on Fiverr, setting up these accounts on Upwork, and doing work for people. These people will then be able to give you reviews and vouch for you as well. And there's so many free events that your community and your library centers put up. You can also, if you have different religious bodies that you can join, and there's a lot of church groups and a number of different groups that you can find in your community. You don't have to go very far. Just in your community alone, start to engage in the local businesses there, engaging in the community centers and the libraries there. It's a great way to engage in the community. And you also find a lot of Facebook groups. I'm a part of a mom group on Facebook. I'm a part of a buy and sell group. There are so many different Facebook groups that you can also join. And you find in the first sort of 30 days, as you're adjusting, as you're moving, you're settling into your apartment, you're getting your SIN number, you're opening your bank account. Those first 30 days when you arrive in Canada are crucial for you to establish these roots very early on. Let's check to see if we have another question. How can newcomers grow their network to match their career or field? So this one we talked about briefly. You can and highlight again is joining these professional organizations, joining these sort of LinkedIn groups that are geared towards your career, and also taking some of these courses as well. If you are taking a project management course, or if you're taking a nursing course or a healthcare course or a marketing course, that just puts you in the room with people who are in your field directly, and you get to exchange ideas and meet people in your field, and then they will also tell you that, oh, this is where people from this office or from this company or this industry tend to hang out, and then you can be meeting people. But right now, as you know, most things are virtual, but there's still a lot of virtual hangouts that are happening by industry. So I would also go on a place that I also recommend is Eventbrite. There's so many industry specific events that happen on Eventbrite that you can filter by industry. You can filter for the free events if you're cash strapped, and you can go to so many of these events. Yeah, it looks like we've answered most of the questions. There was another question earlier about people in the US who want to settle in Canada. Though I'm getting a lot of that. I'm getting a lot of people. I'm not sure if some people are joking or if people are serious, but there is a move and a push for a lot of people coming from the US to Canada. And the first place to start, obviously, is the Canadian government website, the canada.ca. There's an eligibility test that you can take to find out whether you're eligible to move to Canada. And it will let you know sort of the different paths. And Canada has over 80 different paths to immigrate. There's so many different ways and paths for skilled immigrants to immigrate to Canada. And the process is one that can be mostly completed by yourself. I know very few people who use immigration lawyers because it is an arduous process. It's a lot of paperwork, but it can be completed by yourself and with just checking forums and coming to chats like these to get tips and tricks from other immigrants who've moved. It can be a difficult process, but you don't have to do it by yourself, and you can save money on immigration lawyer because that is one of the advantages of Canada immigration, that you mostly can put in the application by yourself. You don't need an immigration lawyer, and that cuts the costs quite a bit. Yes, Nana says libraries are a great resource. Ursula says volunteering is key. Yeah, these are all very good tips, and I can see that some of you have already used some of these resources and done some of these strategies, and it has made a big difference for you. Do we have any other questions coming up? Oh, we have one more question. Apart from LinkedIn, what other resources can one find Canadian job posts? Indeed, you can find Canadian job posts. And then if you have specific companies that you are interested in applying for, you can go directly onto the company website. I tend to find that is best as well, because LinkedIn has a number of auto-generated posts as well. The sometimes HR managers and hiring managers are not as efficient as we'd like them to be in taking them down. So if you have a list of companies that you're interested in applying for, going directly to their website, to their career page, can be the best place to find the most up-to-date information. Recruiting companies as well. There's something called the hidden job market that I like to talk about, where companies go through cycles of putting in like a request or a budget to approve new additional headcount. And sometimes you put in a headcount request from your department for 8 people, but you only get approved for 5 people. So the 3 additional headcount requests that didn't get approved, people start to look for other ways and to maybe turn them from a full-time position into a part-time position. And then you start to hear them asking people in their network that, hey, I wanted to hire a full-time analyst, but I didn't get the approval, so I'm looking for someone to do this part-time, or I'm looking to merge these 2 roles. And some of these roles are in the hidden job market, as they say. They're within the circles. You start to hear people call people up and say, hey, I'm looking for an analyst. I just want a junior analyst. I wanted a senior analyst, but I wasn't approved for a senior analyst, so I have this junior analyst. So even talking to and meeting professionals, and a big way is through LinkedIn or through email or through some of the meetup groups. When you meet and run into some of these professionals, have coffee chats with them or informational interviews with them, where you ask them, so what is like, where do you see your department going, like what kind of challenges are you facing? And then they'll start to tell you things like, yeah, we're actually low on headcount right now, we're overworked, we would like a part-time person, and you can put your hand up for that role. So sometimes meeting people and talking to people, you get to hear about the hidden job market that has roles that are sort of in the inner circles and still in the works of getting approved. And sometimes you get even an opportunity to apply to the role even before the roles are posted. So true. Yes, thank you for that. So we've got 6 more minutes to go on this FAQ Monday live session. Thank you all for joining our first ever FAQ live session, and we'll be having these live sessions every 2 weeks. Sounds like a joke. No, I know it sounds like a joke. But I have gotten a lot of people from the U.S. and Canada. Canada's website, I remember on November in 2016, Canada's immigration website actually crashed, and there was a big headline in Canada in 2016 after the election that there was actual overload to the Canadian immigration website, that it was headline news in Canada. And there's also been a push from the Canadian government based on COVID has brought in a lot of complications in the immigration. So the Canadian government has been, bending and actually adjusting the rules, especially in the case of international students. They're allowing international students who are not able to come to Canada to start their Canadian coursework. They're allowing them to, as they're completing their course online, they're still going to be giving them that work permit. If they're able to complete at least 50% of their course online, they're still eligible for it. Whereas in the US, that's not the case. And I know a number of people who have had to defer their US application or to come to enrollment, to come to the US, because the US is not sort of bending and a number of reasons why people come as international students is a pathway to immigrate to the country. So definitely Canada has advantages to their immigration system, which works in your favor. Yes, not at all in the US. Yes, Canada is more supportive. They still have some work to go, and I see new policies coming up almost on a weekly basis, just adjusting and changing and working very hard to improve the immigration here in Canada, because there are a lot of people who want to move, and COVID has made things a bit more complex. Well, thank you all for joining. I don't see any more questions flowing through. I believe we got some great tips and some great side conversations from you all about volunteering being key, about library resources being key, and about getting to know more about the Canadian immigration. I had fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this again in 2 weeks. Or do we have another question? Let me see. Or I have one more question I can ask. Do you think the current work situation with the pandemic has made work more accessible because of the remote roles? Definitely. So I read an article recently about how there's now a lot more remote roles that are being posted, and that has significantly helped and benefited especially working moms who tend to take extra time away from work because daycare can be so expensive, that it has opened the door for a number of working moms to start taking roles. And I've also seen people taking remote roles from even outside of Canada, and that's also another opportunity. But they are very clear when they advertise those kind of roles, like it actually has remote in the title, and it has some more details in the job description that you're allowed to be remote, but these are the things, or these are the things that you need to the eligibility for you to be able to be remote. So there is an opportunity to also look at remote roles, and part-time roles have also grown exponentially. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Thanks for all your great questions. And I look forward to 2 weeks when we see each other again on the next FAQ Monday. Okay, bye.